Now for this part of your project, you're basically creating part C using a template, which is going to be the bottom plate or the very bottom of your project itself. Now just a quick review and reminder, when you started this project you should have started with 3 total pieces that you cut out that are equal in size, but you got to keep in mind you're not creating duplicates of parts. You're creating one part A, you're creating one part B, and one part C. This video is talking about part letter C. So, very first thing you need to do is take part C template, lay it right on top of your piece of wood, make sure it lines up. There's only one little hole that you need to mark out. It's going to be the charging hole. So we're going to take our pencil, trace out the hole. Step numero dos. We're going to ditch this guy here. We don't really need it. Put it aside for someone else. And this is going to be a hole that we're going to be drilling into, so of course with any hole that you drill, you got to center punch first. So this guy right here, this is one of our center punches that we're going to be using. I have a total of 6 in the woodworking cabinet you can use. Make sure you use this along with the hammer, preferably one with like a steel head. So we're going to place that center punch right on top of the hole, and we're just going to give it a nice little baby tap, just like that. If you hit it way too hard, it's going to split the piece of wood in half, and you're going to have to start all over again, resaw everything, and manufacture another blank. So all we did was trace that out, and then center punched it, just like that. Alright, so for the next step, we need to be drilling a hole right here with a specific drill bit. We're using a 1/2-inch diameter drill bit. I don't expect you guys to know which size is which, but might be helpful if you use a drill index gauge or drill gauge itself. Just to make it easy on you guys, I wrapped a piece of red electrical tape around. That way it's a little bit easier to find out, pick out from the woodworking cabinet itself. So first thing we need to do is chuck this thing upside, or put it inside of the chuck of the drill press. Now just a quick tip, it's a good idea to have a partner hold your piece of wood still, since we have this big 1/2-inch drill bit going into your piece of wood. Have them hold it down, and then you're going to be operating probably this big lever here. Turn this wheel down to the point where you line it up with that little spot right there we center punched earlier. After that, we're going to turn the machine on, drill the whole way down through, the whole way through to the other side, and then take it up and turn everything off. Alright guys, now that our hole is drilled the whole way through of our project, and that's a 1/2-inch hole by the way, we're going to be drawing 2 reference lines starting from either edge here and on the other side that comes straight back. This is going to be like the cutaway slot that the cord's going to come up through. Instead of just drawing a random line, grab yourself a square, clip this square on the edge of your piece of wood, just like that, slide it down, make sure there's no gap in this area right here, and your ruler's right up against the edge of that line. We're going to take a pencil, hold this still, and draw straight back to the other side, or back to the short edge. So you can see there's a long side and a short side. We want to draw from the edge of the circle back to the short side. And you want to do that 2 times. One here, then we'll move down and do the same thing once more down here. Now, this part right here, this little chunk in between, we can scribble that out. That's going to be known as our scrap pieces. The next thing that you would probably would be a good idea to do is make a small little tick mark at the top on one side as well as the other side. So this is going to be like a little reference mark where we're going to use the square one more time to make 2 lines that go across here and here for when we use the square. Pretty helpful if you make use of one of these vices, and preferably when you're doing woodworking, try to use a vise that has wooden jaws. That way it's not going to damage it. It's going to protect your wood, and it's a soft material. So for the next step, for those two reference lines on the top, open up the jaws of the vise, take your piece of wood, clamp it down inside, just like that. And then for the next step, see those two reference lines we made earlier, right here and here? We're gonna use the square, pop that right on top, slide it against, just like this. And then you're gonna draw a line, reference line across here, move it down just well, it's gonna be 3/4 of an inch to the other side, and then to there. Take your pencil, scribble this out. This piece is now ready to be cut out with a back saw. So in the woodworking cabinet, you're gonna see a couple saws. We're gonna use this here. It has like a rectangular blade. This is known as a back saw, and we're gonna be using that to make two cuts, one down this side and one down the other side to chunk out this piece and get rid of it. So to make it easy and safe when you're making this cut right here, it's a good idea to use the vise. So open up the vise, remember the ones with the wooden jaws. You're gonna slide this down in just a little bit. You want to have a reasonable distance between the bottom of this hole and the top of these jaws here. Tighten it down. Next, you want to put your thumb right next to one of the lines. Your thumb's going to act like a guide for the side of the blade. Trust me, your thumb will not get cut. You're just going to feel some of the metal from the blade rubbing up against your finger, but you won't get cut. Take the blade of the back saw, start at the very back near the handle, and just do a couple back strokes, keeping the blade nice and straight. And this is going to start a groove for where we can start making our cuts. And our finger is just helping guide it. After you do that about 2 or 3 times, you're going to have a nice little groove started about 1/16 deep. You can move your hand to the side and start cutting and pushing back and forth. Don't push hard, and also don't twist or bend the blade, or else it's going to be very difficult to cut. And use the whole length of the blade to make your cut. Once you reach the very bottom down here, you want to stop the blade, pull it out, and we're going to repeat the same process over here on this side. If you do this part right, that last piece should just chunk right out just like that. And that piece is now considered scrap. Now our cutaway looks pretty good for the most part. This side turned out better than the other side. Sometimes this will happen. It's perfectly okay. What we're gonna do is we're gonna clean up the inside of this using a file. It's easiest for this step if you take the vise, open it up, and turn it on end like this. Maybe move it down just a touch. That way it's a little bit easier to reach with the file. Now there's going to be 2 different types of files you're going to be using. You're going to be using a round file. If you look at the end of it, it's round. It's kind of like a rod of some sort. That's going to help take care of this like small little rounded part here at the very bottom. You don't want that to be square, by the way. The other one you're probably going to use is one that has at least one flat edge. So files to help clean this opening up. So these are the small details I look for when I'm grading your project. Try to clean this up and make it look nicer. So for the most part, our whole nopling looks pretty good. If yours is off or slanted pretty drastically, we can fix it up and cut it. Just come see me. But as you can tell from the sides here, we have some splinters that are left over like right here on the corner there, and as well as here. It's a good idea to grab yourself a piece of medium sandpaper and just sand that off so those like little pieces are not stuck on there, and that it cleans up the surface. Make sure you do both sides. So at this point, part C is completely finished, and this is exactly what your piece should look like. So all we really did was we took the blank piece and we made a small little cutaway, which will serve the purpose as a a little slot for your charger to come up through, and it'll fit seamlessly up through the hole and charge your phone while your phone's in the phone stand.